Recording in progress.
The Rice Creek Watershed Managers, Board of Managers regular meeting. This is Wednesday, December 13th, 2023. It's 6:30 p.m. We are at the Shoreview City Hall Council Chambers. And first of all, roll call. All managers are present, but we've had a request from manager Jess Robertson to be able to leave. She has other commitments.
Yes,
Other
thank you.
So we're going to need a secretary pro tem.
Mr. President, I'll nominate Manager Wagman, Secretary Pro Tem.
Well,
Thank you.
I would second
Do a
that.
great job,
Oh, I'm
Steve.
back.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
No opposed. Thank you very much, Mr. Wagaman, for your
You're
service.
Yes, and thank you for the accommodation as well. Thank
No-
you.
No problem. So have some agenda has been revised. It's been handed out. Nick, do you want to quickly tell us what changed here?
Manager Bradley, I'd be happy to. Yes, from the original agenda, we relocated the Truth and Taxation public meeting from number 3 to number 1 position under actions for requiring board action. We also relocated the final certification of the 2024 tax levy and budget, the companion of the previous one, up from the 4th position to number 2.
Sue?
We removed the current item 11, administrator review, and we added or replaced the current item 11, the review, with the earned sick, safe time, RCWD, ESST adoption. Excuse me.
Does anyone, any other changes first? Anyone else have change? All right, go ahead and move it.
I move that we approve the amended agenda as stated.
I'll second that. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
No opposed. Next up is the approval of minutes. Ms. Robertson, you want to do your usual
Yes,
great
Mr.
job?
Chair, I would make a motion for approval of the minutes for the November 6th, 2023 workshop, November 8th regular meeting, and December 7th the ditch public hearing fun time that we had.
And by the way, those minutes are now, have been,
Passed out.
passed out. I was looking to see where Nick was going here.
He's just adventuring.
Okay,
I'll
so,
second that.
okay. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None. Takes us to the consent agenda. Patrick, you have anything to tell us?
President Bradley, we have 2 applications on the consent agenda, and then afterwards, we also have another application which has a variance request. So 2 applications first, presented without changes.
Any questions of Patrick? We have a motion then to cap rack 22082 and 23070.
Okay, Mr. President, I would move to Cap Rock permit number 22-082 and 23-070.
I'll second that. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None. Passes. That takes us to the variance.
Yes, President Bradley, I understand that we're maybe moving away from the traditional approach of reading through all the different criterion and the variance memo. If there's anything that you'd like me to point out, certainly happy to do so. The request is related to the floodplain alteration rule for the amount of material placed within the floodplain and not having compensatory floodplain storage.
You're correct that we've decided we love Chris's voice, but the single back and forth narrative probably wasn't necessary, particularly in this case. And for the public, what we're talking about is that they want to add 99 cubic yards of additional fill, which is they're on a lake, and as a consequence, it's like 0.001% of the lake. So any questions of Patrick?
Not at all.
All right, then, can I have a motion to approve the requested variance?
Where, you know, I gotta get in my packet here. I'd do it if I could find it.
So I will move to approve the variance request for application 21-135 as outlined in accordance with the Rice Creek Watershed District Engineers Variance Technical Memorandum dated December 5, 2023. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
No opposed. So then the second motion is I move to approve permit 21-135 as outlined in the Rice Creek Watershed District Engineers Findings and Recommendations dated December 5, 2023. Is there a second?
Second.
Any questions or discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes 5-0. Open mic, I understand that we have someone who would like to speak to us. If you'd please come forward to the podium over here and state your name and address for us, please. And welcome.
Hi, thank you. My name is Colette Adkins. I am a resident of Blaine at 8640 Coral Sea Street Northeast. I've lived there for about 16 years, and I live my property actually abuts a trail, paved walking trail that runs from my neighborhood, which is in the southeast corner of Blaine, up to the Cane Meadows Park and beyond. And I'm here to talk to you about a problem that I've observed. I like to walk along that trail with my dogs and my kids. And year after year, there's, I like looking for wildlife and I enjoy watching signs of beaver, for example. And year after year, the Watershed District has been contracting to set traps along that creek. There's one small dam. This year, the dam was maybe, less than a foot, maybe 8 inches high. The traps were set twice. The first time they were set, there was a conibear body gripping trap set actually on top of the dam. Now, I know from my personal observations that people walk with their dogs off leash. It's illegal, but they do it regularly because I have a fenced property that abuts that creek, and I have 2 dogs, and dogs are always coming up off the trail, up across the creek, and run up and down my fence line with my dogs. So it happens every day. There are dogs off leash along there. In addition to that, kids often use that dam, as small and rickety as it is, to cross that creek. The kids play in the woods on either side of that creek, and they go right across it. So I think it's pretty alarming for traps to be set right on top of the creek where a child, a dog, or other non-target wildlife like coyotes or foxes or other animals that the neighborhood enjoys seeing could get killed.
See, could I interrupt you for one? You're
Sure.
saying the traps are on top of the?
Sometimes the traps are set as water sets at the bottom.
Yeah.
But
that's
yes,
what I'm
just this
familiar
year
with.
in the spring, I observed a conibear trap set on top of the dam. It was visible from the trail.
Okay.
So I know that you've, maybe it depends from contractor to contractor where and how they set the traps. But at least, once this year I've seen it set in a very dangerous way. Now, kids that are coming through the woods, they're not reading the signs that are back on the trail. Dogs obviously can't read the signs. People that are walking their dogs off leash at night aren't reading those signs. Plus, it's not a permanent fix. Year after year, these traps are set. So I understand that you need to keep water flowing on that creek, that ditch. But lots of cities across the country have used these non-lethal methods that don't result in just killing the beavers year after year. All you need to do is put a large, long PVC pipe at the bottom of that dam. What happens is the beaver will keep on trying to fix at the point of the dam, but it can't figure out that it needs to plug the end of the PVC pipe. This is, they call them beaver deceivers. I worked with the Minneapolis Park and Rec Board. They used to contract with a federal wildlife killing program called APHIS Wildlife Services. They used to contract with wildlife services to kill beavers. They've now replaced that entirely with non-lethal methods. So this is doable. I'd like you to consider it. I've received the business cards of your ditch specialists there that have assured me that they need to keep that water flowing, but I'm going to assure you there's ways to do that without killing the beavers year after year.
Could I ask one more question? Who
Sure.
did you say, can you give some names of some of the places that you said were doing that were having success?
Yeah, so the Minneapolis Park and Rec Board is the only one in Minnesota that I know of. Full disclosure, I have a master's in wildlife conservation, and my job is to work as an environmental attorney for the Center for Biological Diversity, which is a national nonprofit organization. I've worked on reducing beaver trapping all across the country, and we've got examples, and I can send them to you by email, of places all across the country where you just can't trap beaver because, for example, there's endangered species that live there. So there's ways to do this without killing the beaver, and I want you to consider that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So it sounds to me like that's just something we ought to look into. Clearly, we don't want to do this in a way that's hazardous to the public. Trust me, beavers are a bane of our existence.
I can imagine.
So, we're never going to make peace with them, but if we can come with a better and safer way, I'm sure all of us would be interested in doing that. And I applaud your bringing this to our attention, and I think we will keep you advised if we.
I appreciate that. Well, I'll connect with you in a few months and see about the progress.
See what
and
we can make. That's
I'll
great.
keep on you.
Thank
All
you.
right, thank you very
That's
much.
fair. That's fair.
Have a
Thank
good
you.
evening. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. Anyone else from the public? All right. That takes us to item 1, which is the
Truth and taxation, public meeting.
Lead us through this, Nick.
Happy to. So this is the board's truth and taxation public meeting. You announced it back at your previous meeting when you considered at the public hearing the budget for the year. That was September 13th, 2023. And at that time, you considered the budget, the levy, and the water management district charges. At that time, we reviewed the funds and plans for 2024, and it was certified. What was in the packet today is identical to that. The district, as well as myself, did not receive any communication from the public at this point for changes or any other communications from individual managers for information or suggested potential adjustments. So
in summary, Nick, is it fair to say that we're asking to increase our 2024, we are proposing to increase our proposed 2024 budget to $8,334,339, which is approximately $250 increase from last year's
I
budget.
think it's a roughly a $10,000 decrease from last year.
By
But
golly,
the
it
fund
is.
balance spending is up, so the levy
So the
does have an increase.
Levy has an increase of a little over 6%, if I'm not
I
mistaken.
believe that's correct.
Okay, so I'm not seeing anyone from the public. Is there anyone on the phone who wishes to speak to us on this? So Nick, if I'm correct that there's no action for us to take, we've previously taken all of the action required of us. We were here to hear people if they had concerns.
Yes, Manager Bradley, generally, I would say that that's true. However, we do have to tell the counties that this is indeed the final document. I think a simple motion, if you're in agreement with what's in the packet, to just be definitive that you've held the truth and taxation meeting. You did ask for comments. The board held any discussion that it might here, and by simple motion, otherwise you would have to contemplate a resolution of whatever changes you're considering, and they would have to be in the downward direction or shifts between funds.
So,
Go
Mr.
ahead.
Chair, based on the documents of 77, 78, 79 in our packet, I move to just reinforce the fact that we have resolution to adopt a 2024 budget and direct certification of a 2024 tax levy in the amount of 6,990, what, thousand seven, no, 99,000, whew, yeah, $751. And our budget is $8,334,339.
So I'm going to ask for clarification from our administrator. I thought the tax levy was more in the neighborhood of 4.8 million.
I think it would be best if you reference the pages that you're referring to. Right now, I'm a bit lost in the discussion. It may be simplest if there isn't any change to recognize page 79 of the document, which indicates the distribution across our counties.
Mr. President,
Thank you.
Mr. President,
Mr. Waller?
thank you, sir. I think it's just a simple motion for the to reaffirm resolution 2023-09 as adopted, the 2024 budget and direct certification of the 2024 tax levy.
Is that a motion?
I'm clarifying what the motion.
I was asking if you'd make
Well,
that
there is a
motion.
motion on the floor.
Yeah,
I'm just
just
trying to
clarify it.
clarify is
Yes.
all I'm
Okay.
doing.
Thank you.
And I
I'll
think
ex-
that's what's necessary here. And to forward this to the counties of Washington, Anoka, and Ramsey.
And Hannah.
Hennepin, yes, we don't want to forget Hennepin.
Okay. So that's the motion. I'll accept that as a friendly amendment.
I will second that. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None. Passes 5-0.
Great.
Thank you for helping me get through that.
Yeah.
So then the next item,
Is item number 3, which is the Lower Rice Creek Stabilization Repair Minnesota Native Landscape Payment. And Matt, I believe, is joining us. I see him on the screen. Matt, can you hear us okay?
I can hear you fine. Am I coming through all right?
You are indeed. Thank you.
Excellent. Yes, Board of Managers, beginning on page 54 are the details of a pay request for Minnesota Native Landscapes for repair work that they did on Lower Rice Creek. Now, if you recall, the Lower Rice Creek Stabilization Project, a large initiative that the district undertook a number of years ago that was completed in 2021. This project is now incorporated as a district facility. Also, because the project was primarily funded by Bowser through a grant, we are required to maintain it. So for those reasons, we inspect it regularly, and if there's any issues, we're required to repair it. So in early 2023, Lower Rice Creek was inspected, and we found that one of the 13 sites did require some repair. At the August 23rd board meeting this year, the managers approved a contract with Minnesota Native Landscapes to do that repair work. There's a couple of photos on page 55 of before and after. The short story here is that Minnesota Native Landscapes did a great job. We're happy with the work that they did. We got a little bit of engineering and oversight from Emmons and Olivier Resources on this project. Minnesota Native Landscapes has submitted their pay application for the contract amount. There is a motion on page 55. And that's about all there is to that, unless there are any questions that the board has.
Mr. President, I'll make the motion so we can have the questions. I'll move that the approval of the payment of $24,070 to the Minnesota Native Landscapes for repair work on Lower Rice Creek.
I'll second that.
Oh, go ahead.
all right, are there any questions of Matt or other comments? Go ahead.
Mr. President, yes, Matt, the original contractor on this wasn't Evans and Oliver, it was, I just forgot for a moment what it is, but is there some particular reason you chose Emmett and Oliver instead of the original contractor?
Yes, Manager Waller, the original contractor was Barr.
Thank you.
The particular engineer that did the design work and a lot of the field work is actually based in Duluth. Seeing as this was a rather small project, we wanted to have somebody local look over this. Manager Waller, as you well know, we've worked with Emmons and Oliver Resources on stream work in the past. I think we value their judgment. So for those two reasons, decided to work with the OR here.
Okay, so basically it's a cost issue, correct? The guy in Duluth would take a lot more time coming down.
A cost issue, yes, and having somebody locally, especially for contractor oversight, was the priority.
Okay, and then the next question is about, this was the beginning, as I remember touring this, it was, some portions of it were rather wilderness. And the public trail is parks, they like things manicured. So are we going to do some more work on the rest of those curves up there that probably need a little help with some stabilization? And
Yes, Matt.
and just when do you think we should get to it is the other thing. This is just kind of a informational question, not a.
Sure. Yeah, Manager Waller, the project here targeted an area with a higher concentration of banks that required repair. But as you're alluding to, there are some additional places to do stream bank stabilization throughout that reach. We don't have any concrete plans now to initiate any large projects, but I think it would be appropriate to maybe pick off a few of those higher priority projects one by one over time. The way that this project worked out, it made sense financially to group these all up and do them together, but some of the remaining higher priority sites could be done one by one.
Mr. President, thank you, Matthew. I look forward to completing the rest of the work on this. I know you'll get around to it, and we'll have it squared away so that we don't start filling up the ponds down there. Was basically this is to cut down the amount of sediment that goes into Lock Lake, I believe.
Yes, absolutely. Yes. Thank you, Manager Waller.
Thank you.
Manager Wynick, good.
Thank you. You'll hear me say this quite often, but because everybody does it. Matt, you said this money came from Bowser, but we want to just clarify again that this is from the Clean Water Fund.
Yes, thank you,
Which
Manager.
will be up for reauthorization in no time. So
Important.
thank you.
So there are no further comments or questions. I'll call the question. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Passes 4-0.
Whiskey monitoring data.
Yes, Manager Bradley, next on the agenda is number 4 of the new agenda, whiskey monitoring database and software. Matt's going to speak to that item as well to start out with, and then I believe Catherine's going to fill in a whole bunch of detail.
All right. Go ahead, Matt.
Yeah, Board of Managers, I'll kick us off with just a couple of comments here, and Catherine, maybe that'll give you time to get up to the podium and get your presentation ready to go there. What we're seeking here, and I should say this begins on page 58 of your packet. What we're seeking here is approval for the purchase of a new monitoring database program. It's called the Whiskey Database. Catherine will fill you in on what that stands for in a minute here. The move to a new water quality monitoring database has been a long time coming. The district has been getting by with what we have right now, which is a database that was designed in-house. The current system works, but I'll say that it's aging. Meanwhile, the advantages of a new database, this whiskey system, have been growing. As Catherine is going to tell you, we are not early adopters on this. Many other watershed districts and other water management organizations around the Twin Cities Metro are moving to this database. We've been having conversations with those agencies for several years. All of the reports coming in are that this new system works quite well, the support works quite well, I think all of these partners are seeing an increase in productivity, decrease in errors, and there's lots of different analytical tools that go along with this database. So I'll stop talking, give Catherine a chance to share some of her slides here. I'll let you know that Catherine is kind of heading up this transition from our old database to this new database should we proceed. And with that, Catherine, take it away.
Okay, thanks, Matt. Just going into a little more detail about the whiskey system. First clarification is, what does whiskey mean? That was my first question with this whole thing. It's
Means
actually
breath
kind of
of
an
life.
acronym. What's that?
Means breath of life.
Breath of life, or in this case, it is kind of an acronym for Water Information System by Kisters. Kisters is the company that produced this software. So our current problem, we have decades of water monitoring data currently stored in multiple different locations and formats, which is a good thing, but it's a lot of data. It's difficult and time consuming to locate and analyze and corral that data if you're trying to, figure out what we have, or, what data we have for a particular lake or stream. Time consuming, inefficient. The current setup, we really have no kind of built-in computational capabilities, no automated QA, QC. So there's some kind of potential opportunities for error there.
QA, QC?
Yep, quality assurance, quality control.
Thank you.
It's kind of just an acronym that's used in
Okay.
data management. We want to make sure our data are accurate and reliable. So our current system is just kind of outdated. We are currently still using paper field forms. You can see a picture here of Matt out in the canoe with a clipboard and some paper data sheets, and hoping for no wind to blow them away. And we're doing manual data entry, so we record things on paper out in the field, and then we come back into the office and type them in. So that introduces an opportunity for error there too, or transcription errors, that kind of thing. So a solution that we are presenting to you today is this Water Information System by Kisters, or WISKI. It is a 2-in-1 database and analytics platform. It includes data consolidation, visualization, editing, and advanced analysis techniques as part of it. One of the appealing things is that it has a pretty good local support network. There is a users group that includes a lot of the other local and state agencies that are using the software that meets regularly. Just got an email today about getting the next meeting set up in the next couple months. And then there is an in-person support person also available to us in town here. Automation capabilities, it will just make the whole process of storing and managing and analyzing our monitoring data much more efficient, and really maximize the value from all of our monitoring efforts, past and current and future. We mentioned that this, we're lucky that this seemingly is vetted. There's lots of other organizations that are similar to us that are using this software. Watershed districts, Capital Region was one of the early adopters. Lots of other local ones. Coon Creek Watershed District is actually currently considering and are moving forward with getting this at the same time too, as we are, and along with other major monitoring agencies like the Met Council, Minnesota Pollution Control Agency, DNR, U.S. Fish and Wildlife. So it's very, it's not a new thing. So if this were to be approved today, we would do setup of the software and training over the winter. And we are currently in conversation with Coon Creek Watershed District about possibly doing a joint training and sharing those costs with them and kind of learning alongside them. So that's a good opportunity that we have right now. And the goal would be to have this new system up and running and ready to go for 2024 data collection and on into the future. And at this point, I'll pass it back to Matt. He's going to talk a little bit about the motion that we are requesting.
Yep, thanks, Catherine. The motion is on page 59. You'll note that the cost quote that is provided on page 61, $33,000, matches exactly the proposed motion on 59. And then I remembered later, as I should always remember, that having a small amount of contingency built into these motions is always helpful, so that we're not having to come back to the board if the actual cost is 33,500 or something like that. So if the board is amenable to it, I would ask for perhaps adding a contingency into this motion for 10%.
Mr. President,
Yes, sir.
I'll move that the administrator be authorized to execute a purchase agreement with Kisters North American Incorporated in the amount not to exceed $33,000, but an additional 10% contingency fund if necessary.
I'll second that. Are there any questions of Catherine or Matt?
Mr. President, so thank you for bringing this to the board. Catherine, we don't see you often enough. Please come more often. You too, Matthew. I always like to see the members of the staff here. And I look forward to the efficiencies and proficiencies that this will help create in our record keeping. But I do like paper.
Hard transition sometimes, yeah.
Does anyone else have a comment?
Just that thank you, Mr. President. I agree. Everything about this makes sense to me. I mean, I don't see any downside to it at all, so
All right.
happy to see it.
Then hearing no other comments, I will call the question. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. No opposed, 4-0. Thank you for your excellent presentations. Thank you again.
Thank you, managers.
Thank you.
Nick?
Yes, Manager Bradley. Next, we are moving on to item 5, which is the Ramsey County Ditch 4, final order directing the repair and implementing water management district charges. Ashley is here for you to introduce this item. As I mentioned before, you should reconvene the public hearing to deal with it. It is found on page 80 of your packet. Ashley, I don't know if you have any other.
No additions to the final order. It was walked up to you guys tonight. Straightforward. It includes the comments that were received from 3 different landowners, as well as being addressed in there. Fairly straightforward. There was no significant comments or substantial comments that would impact the proposed repair and WMD charge. I will just note, in addition to the resolution, there is a second proposed motion for a Houston task order to continue moving forward with plan design.
Give me a second. I'm just kind of struggling here. Here we go. This is supposed to be it.
Yeah.
No, that was from way back when, Wednesday.
Let's see, it was,
You got it?
you have it here.
It will be
It was with the
resolution
draft
2023-12.
So did I hear somebody
like
say we're
that.
reconvening the
Well, I will do that right now.
Yes.
Let's reconvene the Ramsey County Ditch 4 public hearing with regard to the repair of that ditch.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
No opposed? Okay, 4-0. So we are now officially in the right place.
It's under the earned
Is it under that one?
and safety. It felt like it was all together.
Do you want to use mine until?
It's like I have an extra
Oh, there
as
you
well.
go.
Okay,
The resolution?
Yeah, that's what we're looking for, I guess.
okay.
All right. Anyone have any questions of Ashley with regard to the materials that have been provided to us?
So, Mr. President, Ashley, just for the record here, you haven't received any additional information or complaints or written or
Correct, we did
any other input since our hearing in Roseville?
Correct. We did not receive any additional written comments.
Thank you.
That is noted and included in the order.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, I'm prepared to
Go
move this
ahead.
resolution. Resolution number 2023-12. And the order reads, the Board of Managers order implementation of the repair of RCD 4 consistent with the engineer's recommended repairs contained in the technical memorandum as amended dated July 13th, 2023, and consistent with the capital improvement program contained in the district's watershed management plan. The Board of Managers orders the allocation of costs for the repair of RCD 4 in a manner consistent with the recommendations contained in the technical memorandum dated October 31, 2023. The Board of Managers approves the imposition of the Water Management District's charges for the repair of RCD 4 as defined in the Watershed Management Plan and is outlined in the technical memorandum dated October 31st, 2023. A copy of the charge breakdown by parcel is attached hereto. The Board of Managers directs its administrator to coordinate and take all subsequent actions necessary for the implementation of the repair in manners consistent and compliant with existing law. The board reserves to itself, however, all subsequent actions required by the law to proceed upon board approval. The Board of Managers further authorizes expenditures for the repair of RCD 4 and the collection of revenues consistent with this order.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, it's a roll call vote. Bradley, yes. Robertson, absent. Wagman,
Yes.
Waller,
Yes.
Winant,
Yes.
passes 4-0.
Manager Bradley, the next on the agenda is the second motion.
Okay, do we do that next? All right, before we close.
Okay.
Um,
So
Page 82 of your
82.
packets, 83.
Mr. Chair, I move to approve the Houston Engineering Task Order 2021-014.
minor correction, that'd be 2023. There's a typo there in the memo.
Oh, okay, thank you. 2023-014.
There we go.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None. So at this point, we close the public hearing with regard to the repair of ditch 4, and we go back to our normal public hearing.
Thank you.
Ashley, thank you.
A lot of moving parts in
What's
this
back?
meeting.
Yeah.
Manager Bradley, next
Yes.
on the agenda in our regular meeting is number 6, the 2024 Rice Creek Watershed District Board Calendar. It's found on page 88 of your packet. We do need to approve a calendar annually. We had some good discussion at the workshop. We will see how the district's border adjusts and our potential meeting sites comes together.
Are there any other additional comments today before we act on this? If not, can I have a motion to approve the proposed calendar for Rice Creek Watershed District 2024 Board of Managers?
Mr. President, I would move to approve the 2024 Board of Managers calendar for Rice Creek Watershed District.
I'll second that.
Is there any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None. Passes 4-0.
Manager Bradley, next on the agenda is number 7, the 2023 Comprehensive Wetland Protection and Management Plan, also known as CWPMP report, the Houston Task Order. Patrick's going to speak to that item for us, and it is found on page 89 of the packet.
Thank you, Nick. Yes, so the district has 5 CWPMPs adopted into Rule F, the Comprehensive Wetland Protection and Management Plan areas. Per WACA rule, it is a requirement that we submit an annual report, an update on the activities triggered within these CWPMP areas, an update on replacement plans, violations, all sorts of business there. So this is something that we've completed every year since the adoption of the CWPMPs. The request here is to approve a task order from Houston Engineering to compile the annual report for the 2023 activities. So the recommendation is on page here. I guess the motion is later on that page, on page 90 of the packet.
Does anyone have any questions to Patrick?
Mr. President, I have just one question. Patrick, you're not planning on making changes at all to the water management plans, are you? Just
Correct. This isn't any changes to the rule or
Just,
anything. It's
yeah, just
a-
doing your report that you, okay, thank you. I can
Okay.
do that. Mr. President, I will move to authorize the board president to execute the Houston Engineering Task Order 2023-015 to prepare the 2023 CWPMP Annual Monitoring Report in an amount not to exceed $17,000.
Second.
Any discussion?
Mr. President, I have a couple questions here. Number one, there are 5 of these reports, and they're basically plans for the cities that individually have created these management districts. Is the reason the district has to submit a report to Bowser because the district is still the local unit of government for the Wetland Conservation Act in these cities? And if that's the case, if the cities became the local unit of government, would they be responsible for submitting this report?
Yes, so I would say that is correct. We are the local government unit that administers the Wetland Conservation Act. So it is our obligation to provide those reports to Bowser. So yes, if a municipality in the district became the WACA authority, I would believe that they would have to, I don't know, get some sort of reapproval or different approval for a CWPMP, but yes, they would be.
They'd have to submit the report, their own report. Okay, well, that's an important thing to know. So then for informational question I have for you, Patrick, is how do we offer them a carrot to become in charge of their plan and free up some of our resources for other work?
Sure. So I guess just a matter of differing opinions, I suppose. I think that, the district, because these plans don't necessarily follow political boundaries, they typically are based on the drainage area. I guess I would argue that it's simpler for us to administer our own plan, report on it, and everything like that.
These plans are not, I thought they were, each city had its own plan.
That's what I thought.
I didn't think there's a district plan that goes across. Are you saying the plan for Lionel Lakes, for example, in Columbus is the same?
No, they are
Different
uniquely
plans.
different based on that area.
I'm just asking you to think about it, not to actually do it. But I think that's someplace we could, since we're into proficiencies tonight, earlier, we could take an examination. It's the city really is the planner, and they're the ones that are involved with the local area. So that's why I would look for doing that in the future. I know that Mike, the administrator, has the last word. I'll yield the floor,
He may not have
Mr.
the last
President.
word, but he gets the next one. Mr. Administrator?
Thank you, Manager Bradley. I'll make note that the proficiency lies in managing the resources through a watershed district, and we are currently the LGU. The district has continuously extended a carrot under its watershed management plan. It has provisions for any municipality to take over the LGU or the administration of the rules. The district sets the standards. We've found those standards to be appropriate to accomplish the goals or a portion of those goals through the rules, also your projects and programs. So it's certainly up to the community to decide if they'd like to venture into that. I'm sure cost, staffing is an item that they would consider before doing so, and also likely the resource management obligations that the district sets a standard for are hopefully in unison with development plans, but that can be difficult to be encouraging economic development by also having resource management be a paramount goal. So I think for those reasons, a lot of them want them separate.
Let me ask a simple question. For the 3 cities that have adopted the responsibility, 5 cities that have adopted the responsibility, no, I'm talking about those who have adopted the responsibility of having our, following our rules. Yeah, having our rules. Are they the WACA authority in those also?
Yes, they're the
So when
wetland.
they, so when they took on the responsibility of implementing our rules, they also took on that responsibility.
Correct.
Okay, that's all I had.
So then, these don't look like cities to me. Are you talking about the Village Meadow and Anoka County Ditch? Are those the 5 entities that you were talking about?
Maybe just a point of clarification. So what you're referring to are the different CWPMP plans.
Yes.
And then Manager Bradley's point was to the 3 municipalities that have become what we call level 2 that have ordinances similar to our rules, and then are also the WACA LGU.
And those are, what are those communities?
Yes, Circle Pines, Hugo, and Mounds View.
Mounds View, okay, got it. 3, 2, 5, okay.
So, yes, and they're not the same.
No,
They're not identical.
I knew
just wanna
that.
Make that clear.
Oh, I knew
Yeah,
that.
I understand.
Okay.
But just for the purpose of the communities that have the authority for local unit authority of government, I don't believe that one of them has a comprehensive wetland management plan.
Well, maybe sometimes we want them.
I'm just saying, they're competent of handling that themselves.
Okay.
So much, just for the discussion, that's
Yep,
all.
okay. See, you do have to get the last word.
See?
Go ahead, Mr. Administrator.
I would simply like to share that the CWPMPs are a coordinated effort with those municipalities because they see the value in identifying the highest value wetlands. Okay, let's preserve those. Let's reduce the obligation of mitigation on those that are of less value. And that is, ultimately what it comes down to is you have to mitigate for the impacts, and those rules provide reduced impact and replacement ratios, but then higher ones on those things we really should be finding of value. It's probably good to
Okay, I
note.
think it's probably time to call for the
Call the
vote.
question, President.
Yeah, I think,
Thank you.
okay. You really can't stand it, go ahead. I mean, I don't want you to break something.
Appreciate it. The CWPMPs, the first ones on 5362, were specific watersheds within cities. Later, we moved to entire municipalities that are within the district. So Lino Lakes is not entirely within Rice Creek, but those portions that are under have the CWPMP. Further, it'd be good to note that even though those entities, the 3 Circle Pines, Hugo, and Mounds View that have taken on, there are still regulations that you've identified that are not under their authority, such as your public drainage. Thank you.
You done?
Thank you.
Okay, we're all done. Can I have have we done the motion? We had the motion? Okay, there you go. So all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, no opposed. Passes 4-0. Thank you. Had a good discussion.
Manager Bradley, next on the agenda is number 8 of the revised, which is City of Fridley 2021 Eastmore Lake Enhancement Project Cost Share Extension Request. And Will has joined us for this item.
Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, President Bradley and Board of Managers. So yeah, tonight, for your consideration, starting on page 97 of your board packet, City of Fridley is requesting a 1-year extension for the Eastmore Lake biochar and iron enhanced sand filter project. This was a project that received cost share approval back in 2021. The city has completed the work. They are is currently waiting on Xcel Energy to bring power out to the site for system startup and testing. Since their original, and then because their original agreement expired November 30th of this year, they're requesting that extension just to get that last bit of work done. So yeah, it'd be, it's staff's recommendation to grant that approval and to amend the agreement to have a new expiration date of November 28th, 2024. And then for the board to delegate signature authority for that extension to the district administrator.
So I have no problem with this request, but I'm, as a guy who used to represent Excel Energy, they used to do anything if you paid them. So, so what's the problem?
Yeah, I
Do you
got
know?
one.
Oh, you got it.
Oh,
Do
here's
you
the
know what the
city of
problem
Fridley.
with Excel?
Rachel's on.
Huh.
Rachel's on.
There you
on
go.
the city.
I read
Hi,
there were
Rachel.
supply chain issues.
Did you want to
Said
make
in
a comment? Go.
Oh,
I think,
I'm
We
sorry.
can't
I
hear
think
you.
you're on mute.
Are you?
Can you hear me now?
There we
Yes,
go.
we can.
Yeah.
Great. Yes, the original issue was a supply chain issue getting the control panel for the electrical pump. Since then, we've just been waiting on Excel to bring power out to the new panel. I believe they just have a very large amount of workload. We were able to meet with them on site last week, and they confirmed a January startup for the site.
Good. Because otherwise, like, I know the president, we could go. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I'll move the motion to amend the 2021 cost share agreement between Rice Creek Watershed District and the city of Fridley by amending the expiration date to November 28th, 2024, and delegate signature authority of the extension memo to the district administrator.
I'll second that. Any discussion or further questions?
I have been by that. That screen, it is a major effort. Yes,
It'll also be nice when it's done.
it'll be wonderful
Yeah.
when it's done. Right, right. And Will, is this where there's a mini grant for animal waste, dog waste site too?
I believe so, yes.
I think so. I think so too. I was at that Citizens Advisory Committee
There you
meeting,
go.
so good. All right.
So all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None? Passes 4-0.
Great. Congratulations.
Rachel, thank you for participating.
Thank you. We appreciate the board's support of our work to improve the water quality of Moore Lake in partnership with the district.
It's important to us too, so thank you.
Thank you.
Manager Bradley, number 9, JCON LLC, partial payment request 1, Anoka, Washington, Judicial Ditch 3, Phase 2 repair project. Ashley's here to share that with you. It's on page 115.
Yeah, good evening. So we have our first partial pay request from JCON on the branches 1, 2, and 4 repair for JD3. The pay for the work was mobilization, tree removals. They've done some excavation of open channel as well as installing several crossings. All of this has been inspected and reviewed by the engineer and staff. The amount is $68,194 and change. We are proposing to hold a 5% retainage. With that, there is a proposed motion, and then I do have a small update after.
Mr. President, I'll move approval of JCON LLC pay request number 1 is submitted and certified by the district engineer and direct staff to issue a payment in the amount of $68,194.04.
I have a clarifying question first.
Yes.
So you said withholding, so are we gonna withhold some of that 68 or
That is with the 5% withheld.
that's after the?
Yep.
Thank you. Then I will second that. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None? All right, it passes.
All right, and then just brief repair update. We have completed almost all work, just a little bit tidying up left on branch 2. On branch 1, they have started excavation and completed the majority of tree work. However, we have had unforeseen conditions come up where we are realizing that costs will probably are going to exceed the 10% contingency. And so just as a heads up, staff will be bringing forward at the first January meeting a request for additional contingency funds. The it's additional tree removals, which are of good value to make sure that we have a well-maintained access corridor, as well as some fencing improvements for access. There was a pasture that we went through that was in quite disrepair, so we're happy to work with the landowner and get the site conditions better for our access into the future.
Mr. Chair, Ashley, the weather is cooperating, isn't it?
No.
No. Okay,
Actually-
tell me more.
Yeah, so actually, so because the ground in these areas is very soft, very organic peaty, they were really hoping for very cold temperatures to form that frost layer and get a crust on there and kind of help support the equipment. So these warm daytime temps are actually keeping it pretty soft. They are able to use mats and get to the areas that are softer, but it's slower going, and they're using smaller pieces of equipment to make sure that they're as stable as possible. So, ideal
that makes
conditions
sense.
would be cold without snow, but to each one good on one side, bad on the
Never
other.
get everything you want.
Yep. So I was like, last year it was, tons of snow and tons of rain, and then ice cold temperatures. So, you never get the perfect one. So.
So, Mr. President, besides that we need polar vortex to arrive soon, I think, Ashley, that's been a pretty rugged area out there. I'd comment to you.
Yes.
If you go out and observe it, it's been really pretty rough. And so they're doing as well as they can do, considering the considerations and what the situation was from the lack of attention for many decades.
Yep. Appreciate it's
a tough deal.
They're working in very soft conditions, so nothing that they're unfamiliar with because they have experience in it. They'll be moving over to Branch 4 in the new year, which does have a couple residential neighborhoods on it that we're working with to keep them updated on. That has higher and drier ground, but then closer working quarters with houses nearby. So can't win them all. There's always something. There's always something.
Yeah.
Next, item 10, Anoka County Ditch 5362 Main Trunk Repair Project. Its completion and U.S. site work in company final pay request. Ashley's going to do this along with Chris. I think they have a short presentation here.
Yes, so I'll do a quick introduction for the pay request, and then I'll hand it over to Chris for a presentation on wrap-up of the overall work. So this is the 9th pay request. It is their final pay request. They have submitted documentation for closeout. We are considering it complete, and staff and the engineer are signing off on. And so looking to the board to make the approval for the last final pay request, which will release the 5% retainage. That amount is $22,588 and change. Again, to be divided 60% to the WMD, 40% to ad valorem. On page 122, there is a proposed motion. I guess if you'd like to see the final project closeout presentation before a motion, I'll hand it over to Chris. Unless there's any immediate questions of me.
Well, I'm questioning the last comment you made about how this money would be allocated for recovery. I would assume that was the split was based on the budget that we established, because that went off to taxes and things. So I'm trying to tie the comment about this 22,000 being split 60-40. Isn't that true of the whole thing, and have we already accomplished that?
Yes.
Each pay request has been split is 60-40.
Consistent with the original order of the project.
Yep.
and the charges.
So that you don't try to recover, now you've got to try to recover that next year? Is that what you're doing?
The district always fronts the money for the WMDs,
Okay.
and then we're reimbursed
So you're talking
over
about
time.
an accounting treatment rather than actual cost recovery in the 60-40 at this point.
I'm sorry, one more time.
So when we approve the 60-40 split, as we
Yes,
recently do, when you go to collect the taxes, you collect 60% from one pocket of taxes and 40% from the other pocket of taxes.
correct.
we aren't taxing anybody today.
Correct.
So I'm just trying to figure
Yep.
out what we're doing today. That
Yes.
40/60, we're just putting it someplace to be taxed later, or?
We're going into the existing funds that we have and paying the contractor.
Based
Yep.
on that.
Yep.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
Yep, they're collected annually, and then put into the account, and then it's an accounting exercise to split it up, between the different funds.
Yeah, okay, makes sense.
All right, I'll turn it
Thank
over
you.
to Chris. Unless was that another question?
Nope.
Okay.
Get the presentation going here.
Okay.
Mr. President, Board of Managers, just wanted to give a very brief wrap-up here on the project. I'll try to make this fast. The photo here on the first slide is a pretty good representation of the success that we've had in getting vegetation established on this project. Again, it's been a repair effort that's been a long time coming. They started this, I suppose it was about in November of last year, meeting us out in site and, finally getting to this last hurdle here, getting the last payment done, but we finally have everything completed. So just a rehash of the project team here. The contractor was US Site Works. They did a very good job on this. We were happy with how they did with the project management standpoint and really being collaborative with us on the project. So I really like to commend them. Ashley and Abel were great with us as being the leads from the district side on public engagement. And there certainly was a lot of public engagement on this project. It was quite a success story with the number of landowners we had to talk to along the way. We really had very little negative feedback. You're never going to have any project that has zero negative feedback, and there's certainly a few occasions that we had to talk through concerns of the landowners, but in general, highly successful in that regard. And then the observer we had on site, Griffin McComas, this was his first project on a ditch repair effort, and did a great job on it.
Chris, Mr. Chair, just to pause. I now remember going to that ditch hearing and the room was full, as you might recall. And it was a cold night. And when, was that 2 years ago? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So it's nice to see how this goes from there. So to the point of project engagement, there were lots of questions and it became very apparent that there would need to be staff on the ground talking to the residents. So,
yeah,
thank you.
No, that was a great point there, Manager Wine. And our public engagement piece has been continuous since that public hearing. It's been talking with landowners ahead of the repair effort, meeting with, I can't remember how many of them we met with, like 10, 12 of them along the way there. Before it started, hearing their concerns along the way. And you'll see a couple occasions we had to make mid-course changes to address some concerns there. So I was incorrect before. Actually, it started in October of 2022. We did have initially a substantial completion date of July 2nd, but we did have that change order that occurred along the way to amend the contract to push the substantial completion date further back to August 4th, and the contractor did complete the substantial completion by that time. That's, again, a little different than final completion, which final completion is just hitting some of the punch list items that are done, and the contractor did complete those by October 1st. Real quick overview on the contract, $371,000 roughly was the original contract amount. We had over 29,000 in change orders. we did have about $7,000 in unused quantities, so that's actually a deduction that we had there. So some of those items that we had, we didn't end up needing as much of. That final cost, 393,000 roughly, and the original contract, if plus the 20% contingency, was 445,000. So we did come under that, and came in just a little bit over the engineer's estimate that we had before the bid started. I think I'll note that there's a portion of this that has been obligated to the city of Circle Pines, an amount of 44,600. Still working with the city on collecting that amount there. And one of those things that in a future repair effort would probably be best getting additional clarity with the city before we begin that process. I'll talk a little bit about the type of work now. A lot of work on excavation of channel. There was sediment all the way along in this stretch of the ditch. Tree removal was really one of the biggest items of all along this repair effort, and we did have a lot of success with that contractor working to get those trees cleared, leaving those stumps in the bank, as you can see in a couple of the photos there. The other important thing to note is that these photos, you see the bare ground here. This was the condition that was there even before we started. It was bare before, but you didn't see the bareness as much because if you're standing out there were trees in the way and being able to see that. But really, those trees shielded out all the vegetation, which makes the vegetation that we see now even more of a success story.
So are those outfalls what the city is paying for?
Correct. That's the
Okay.
example there on that right-hand picture, one of those outfalls. They already had storm sewer that went out in the ditch, and they were generally caving in. A couple of the sections of pipe were displaced. And what we did was essentially put a better structure on there that is going to fit in with our slope of the ditch so that it wouldn't be eroding as much as it was before.
And that's part of the outstanding payment.
Correct.
And I've got one question, Mr. President. What did you mean by the part about working with the cities a little ahead of time? What?
Yeah, I think I would recommend next time around that if we do have a city contribution to the project, we had one of these with ACD 31 in Columbus where we had an outfall into the ditch, and the city of Columbus paid for that as part of that project. I think in the future I'd recommend that we actually work to prepare an agreement ahead of time so it's clear to the city and to us what the expectation is for time frame of getting paid back for this and conditions and that sort of thing of the payment.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Number of challenges we encountered on the effort here. Both of these were involving unstable soils in the ditch, and the first one was a little easier to recover because we were under winter conditions. This was kind of off of that city property that is adjacent to Lexington, and they were able to get some larger equipment in to help pull that excavator out. The one on the right-hand side was a little more worrisome. We were just thankful that everybody got out safely in that one. And this is actually a location where under the district direction, we had another contractor several years ago with much smaller equipment was able to get through there. That's why we had developed the contract the way we did and the access the way we did to utilize the ditch bottom as a means of getting the equipment up and back. But with this larger piece of equipment there, the track fell in. You could see it went sideways, ruined the motor. It was challenging, and this is all right next to a city park. But fortunately, again, no injuries there. They were able to cover the equipment. It was a setback for the contractor's schedule, but we were able to find a different way to access for the tree clearing and the excavation, and we were able to succeed then on the remainder of the project.
I've never seen the photo, just heard about it.
Yeah.
Sheesh.
It turns your stomach a little bit when you see that.
Yeah,
So
because there was an operator in there, right?
they ate the
Yes.
cost of the, I mean, the contractor. and
Yeah,
what-
they had to,
Ay, ay, ay.
pay for the cost of that repair to the excavator there. Yeah.
That probably didn't help the bottom line on that project much, but
Really good.
Another example here where and this is related to that, after that incident, we did have to work a little more on the northeast side of the ditch to walk up there with equipment. And because of that change, we needed to get around this power pole and guy wire that was out there. So we had to get a power company there, or at least coordinate the power company so that we could hold the power pole while they were moving the guy wire to get around there. At the same time, we did have some landowner coordination in that same area because we did have to access around that landowner's property. And fortunately, the landowner engagement once again turned out very well. We were able to get agreement with them on where we were going to be accessing and moving forward, and they were happy with the end result.
So is that piece of equipment getting all the shrubs out of there? What is the orange?
That's the equipment that they're actually using to hold the power pole while they had the guy wire removed to gain access through there.
Ah.
Yeah.
Didn't do anything,
Other thing that we found is lots and lots of old erosion control blanket that was out there. This is different than the modern day erosion control blanket, which is meant to degrade over time. This stuff that you see here is notorious for trapping snakes and turtles and other animals. So as we were out there, as much as we could, we tried to remove it. There's still some that's just buried under dirt here or there, but we did, wherever we could, try to clean that out, but it was a mess. Get caught up in the tracks of the equipment and that sort of thing too, so. We did also encounter one area where there was a slope failure that we saw once we got all the vegetation out. And so we did, as a change order, include a little bit of sheet piling. We utilized some of that vinyl sheet piling, which we've utilized in the past on this work. Actually, I take it back. This wasn't the vinyl sheet piling. This is a regular steel sheet piling. But it was in smaller segments that we were able to do in here. And now the slope is a lot better what it is. So I think we'll be seeing a lot less sediment getting down into the ditch from this area through here, which should decrease the amount of effort that we have in the future in maintenance along the drainage system, decrease the amount of sediment going into the city's sedimentation basin at the downstream end of the ditch. So overall win-win here. And then, as I mentioned before, the establishment of grass along the drainage system. What you see here is the, I guess, annual grass that is popping up right now. Due to the time of year that we're planting this, you get the annual starting up that first fall. And then next spring is when we'll start to see the perennials pop up. So we'll need to go out and take a look at the site, and it's possible there may be some bare spots here or there that we might have to address at that time. You just never know how germination is going to be as you go out here, but in general, we're very happy with this first cover crop here, how well it's going, and you can actually see sunlight coming in here, which is going to help that growth a lot.
Chris, there's a gate on that picture too, or some. We talked with these. There, yeah. We talked about having a padlocked access gate, or.
It's on the street.
Yeah, well,
okay.
There's actually two different gates. So yes, Manager Wall, you're correct. There's one that's on the street on Lexington. The one that's showing in the photo here is at the top of the ramp going from that city property down into the ditch there. So
to keep.
In both cases, it's intended to keep access or to dissuade access from going through for people going through there. You're never going to be able to keep everybody out there. Important to note again that the area we're working in, even though we consider that a right-of-way, it's not something that is intended for public access. It's intended for the district's access. And, you know, even that said, you know, the public may may attempt to utilize that area, and you know, hopefully the gate will at least give some indication that that's not the intended use.
And I have another question. When you first showed us the plans, you had, I don't forget what you called it, but it would be sloped and then a flat area that you were going. A shelf. Thank you. Did you end up using shelves on this one?
We did not on here, and one of the reasons was that we did have a change in the plans right before we bid it to take that shelf out. One of the reasons was because if we did that, we would have had to actually excavate into some of the properties on that
Right.
southeast or southwest side of the ditch. And there's a lot of landowners that had stuff out there that it would have been a challenge to construct it like that. So what we ended up doing was instead working over on the north and east side of the ditch, where there was much more distance between the properties on that side and the ditch. And we were able to then keep essentially a buffer of trees in there between the ditch and their property along that side.
And I would also imagine these property owners now have light in their homes that they have not had before, or at least a number of years. Because that's a lot of tree removal.
Yeah, and there certainly are
Major
still a lot of trees in these people's backyards between their homes and the ditch yet. But we had to clear quite a number of them, and I'm sure that there are landowners that see that as a positive. There's some that might see that as a negative too. So,
Mr. President?
Yes, sir.
Thank you for that question about the shelf. So, does that mean that maybe for the next time, whenever this comes about, that for manure maintenance, you're going to use machinery that has a longer boom instead of getting down in the ditch where you break the bottom or something like that? What are the options, I'm saying, about the future so that you don't have that problem? I assume you got a hole you had to fix because that looked like that track fell over. So in order to maintain the profile and not create a hole, longer booms, smaller equipment, what do you, just give me some color discussion.
sure, yeah, Manager Waller, I think that we would be completing the project as we actually finally ended up completing it, because after we didn't have the contractor wasn't walking through the bottom of the ditch very far before that incident occurred. So in general, pretty much everything that they did in order to clean the ditch out was from one bank or the other with long reach excavators. So yeah, we're set up to operate in that manner, and we are able to, you know, through this project, figure out that they could reasonably do that with the long reach. And they're pretty long sticks that they had on there to do that, but it was feasible and we got it done, so.
Thank you. That's, you know, I saw that happen a long time ago in JD2 where they needed to have a long stick. And so it should be something that you consider and don't be afraid of, making sure the contractors have adequate equipment.
Yeah, no, that's a very good point. And we have had a number of repair projects that we've utilized that too. 102232 by the prison, for example, is another.
Yes, this is not uncommon in this district.
Yep.
So that's the second comment I've received today about the importance of making sure our contractors have the appropriate equipment. So.
Mr. President, I think this is kind of you know, these ditches haven't been cleaned out in a century or so. So as they go along and the staff is learning the land, you know, they're out there getting their muddy boots, as I say, and understanding how it goes so that when the maintenance comes up, which will be much sooner than a century, if I have.
It's continual.
If you have your way.
Well, if I have any influence. And the staff will
It'll take another decade before we get the last ones done, so I don't know.
No, sir, only 7 years.
Okay.
We're 29, it's not too far away. So the staff will have an understanding of how the ground is when they know the ground, and I expect that and I hope you're making some kind of notes if you don't have a new computer system like the Stream and Lake folks have. Maybe we need to update yours too, so that or on paper, my favorite medium.
Yep.
But thank you.
No, very good point. The institutional knowledge is very important, so. Couple shots of the project before and after, you can see what a difference this has made, that jungle that was there before. And again, you can really see in here, if you look closely enough, the bare slopes that were in that before condition out there.
It looks like a mighty steep bank on the after, where the tree is, for example, on the right-hand side.
Yeah, it is steep. And the vegetation growth is going to be very important to keeping that stable. But we're kind of left with the hand that we're dealt with, I would say. So,
Mr. President, just in support of the staff here, Anoka County is notorious, if you've ever driven around it, for posting signs next to road crossings that say deep ditch. And this is what they have in mind, and they've constructed them this way. So it's, in my opinion, I agree with you, sir, it's a hazard.
Yeah.
But, as the engineer said, it's kind of what we have.
Yeah. Thank you. Chris, maybe a leading comment here. So why don't we have the contractor flatten it out and make reduce the steepness of the ditch? Because it's
we could, under the law, as a repair, but if we did it as a repair to flatten the slopes back, we would need to essentially purchase more right-of-way from the landowners. That becomes a taking as we flatten the side slopes out, and then finding a place to put all that material and everything else, which requires additional right-of-way even beyond that probably. And then with how close the homes are in this particular location, that's a challenge. But it is something that we can consider on areas where we're not as tight up to the ditch. We've done that with other entities, drainage authorities around the state. So.
Was that the original ditch profile, or?
Yes.
Okay. That makes.
Yeah, although, who knows how much land development may have encroached on there and built up either side of it.
That's what I was wondering about, the sideboards of the ditch.
Yeah. Next example here, over by Fleet Farm, you can see how much water there was in the ditch. Now, this, of course, might have been at a time when we might have had a little more water flowing through there, but certainly we did lower the standing water level around there. You can see here before we got seeding and establishment of vegetation here that everything got smoothed out here after our repair. Another deep gully area, lots and lots of trees and brush, and now it really is opened up. You can see that ramp going down from the top down into the ditch here. And then you can also see on this photo in the background the long reach excavator, that big arm on it, and it's quite a piece of equipment they need to get into that deep of a ditch. And this is one that's closer to the Carl Eck Park area. Again, we have it cleared out. It's the sun can actually get through here now. This is before the vegetation got fully established there, but certainly shortly after this photo, it would have been very green on that right-hand side. And it's always good to remember that this is just a initial step in the process of maintaining the drainage system, as you mentioned earlier there. We're going to need mowing, spraying. There's inspection that occurs. I indicate on your 5 years, that's the maximum time span that's allowed under the statute, but on a system like this, staff is out there every year taking a look at it. Sediment will deposit in the channel, and we do know that every one of these that we've done, usually a couple years afterwards, we have to get back out there and dip down in there again to clean out some of the sediment that's occurred once you kind of open the wound in there.
What was your reference to there being a statutory limitation on inspections or?
Yeah, statutory requirement for inspection is that you must inspect them every 5 years or
At
less.
least, so it's at least 5 years,
Yep.
okay. I assumed that was the case.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yeah, so there certainly is going to need to be maintenance probably in the next year or two. I, again, indicated that there might be some areas that we find that the perennial grasses don't fully come up next spring, and we might have to throw a little seed down in those areas. But it's really a never-ending process, but we've gotten a big hunk of the problem dealt with here in this location. That's all I had. If you have any more questions, I certainly can address them before you consider the final payment.
So we've already had a motion, have we not? Or is this
No,
the second-
we
this
have
is the
not
second
had a
one?
motion.
All right, so can I have a motion then?
Mr. President, I move to approve U.S. Site Work, Inc.'s final pay request as submitted and certified by the district engineer and direct staff to issue a payment in the amount of $22,588.40.
Second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 No opposed. Thank you very much. Nice report, by the way.
Nice job.
Thank you.
I was able to follow it as I always drive Lexington
I've
to go
never
up to the
seen that
office
one.
and kept my eye on what was happening.
Oof.
Big job. Nice job, big job.
President Bradley. Next on the agenda is item 11, which was our addition here, earned sick safe time, Rice Creek Watershed District notice and adoption. This material was handed out to you ahead of the meeting. As we discussed a little bit at the workshop on Monday, the state adopted a new earned sick and safe time law. It's effective January 1st, 2024. The law is to have employers must provide to their employees in Minnesota that leave can be used for certain reasons, care of family, personal illness, domestic abuse, sexual assault, stalking, and so on. The district employee handbook currently includes a section 7.3, which we call personal sick leave. And it requires some adjustment to comply with the state's law, as well as the additions of what the acronym ESST in section 7.3.1. At the workshop, a comment was made about the emergency declaration or closing due to weather. The current content of our handbook notes the use of leave if an employee should find their travels inappropriate or dangerous or uncomfortable, I think is the actual word that's used in the handbook. So with that, you'll see connected to the memo is the change identifying personal sick leave 7.3, which is current with some slight adjustment, but then more directly section 7.3.1, which is actually the language of the Minnesota law. With that, staff do have to do some administrative items that we will put in place. One, we have to post a notice on the bulletin board. We've created that. We'll send that by email to all our employees to be ensured that they're informed. We have to note the accrual and balance on each employee's earnings statement and get this codification into the book. So with that, there is a proposed motion on there. Staff recommend the adoption.
Mr. President, I'll move the board to approve implementation of ESST incorporation into the district employee handbook and practices, including any non-material changes on the advice of council.
Second.
Any discussion?
Mr. President, just for Mr. Attorney. Good evening, Chuck. So it says here, any non-material changes on the advice of council. As I understood, this has to be in effect by January the 2nd. We're going to make that time.
Manager Waller, yes, that would just refer to any final
Okay.
formatting or clarity issues.
So we'll be safe so that the government won't send down some enforcers on us.
I will be laboring on your behalf on December 30th, and if necessary.
Thank you, sir. It's most kind of you. And I call a question.
Any further questions or discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? It passes 4-0.
President Bradley, next on the agenda is item 12, December 27th, 2023 check register. This is found on page 128 of the packet. This is to authorize a resolution authorizing the treasurer's approval so that we can keep business moving ahead in the second half of December.
So I would move resolution 2023-13. The Board of Managers authorizes the district treasurer to review and approve payments of the December 27, 2023 check register in an amount not to exceed $400,000 for operating expenses and $575,000 surety returns. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? This is a roll call. Bradley, yes. Robertson is absent. Wagaman.
Yes.
Waller.
Yes.
Wynant.
Yes.
Passes. 4-0.
President Bradley, next on the agenda is the check register.
Yes, and Mr. Chair, I move that we approve the check register dated December 13th, 2023 in the amount of $168,229.35 prepared by Redpath and Company.
I'll second. Any discussion, questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? 4-0.
President Bradley, next on the agenda are items for discussion and information, starting with the district engineer update and timeline.
Anyone have any questions of Chris with regard to his monthly updated analysis of how he's doing? This is for informational purposes. This does not require a motion. So thank you again. I find this, particularly find the bar graphs helpful.
Yeah, me too.
Great.
Yeah.
President Bradley, if I could take the opportunity and make it as quickly as possible. Chris, could you provide the board, since we're all together here, a comment regarding the beaver trapping, the pipe at the bottom of the dam? To me, the capacity of a small pipe will in no way, and we don't know how high the beaver will establish his
Ordinary high
dam.
water mark.
Yeah. Any initial comment on that?
Sure. We have dealt with issues and concerns like that in the past. I know that there's been a number of devices that people have tried to utilize to discourage beavers from, say, clogging culverts. Because if you do put a culvert in there,
You're going to build it.
it actually encourages the beaver activity more than just having an open ditch there. They have different devices where they put like a mesh over the end of the pipe and then put other things around it to try to make it more challenging for them to place things around there and mud it in or whatever. I think that it's advisable that we stay on top of new devices and trends that people are doing to manage beaver activity. And I think that, certainly there are things that we can try in some locations potentially. But I think in this particular location, to try to put a small pipe in there where the beaver dam is, I don't think that it's a long-term solution, because that beaver dam could very easily get washed out as well, washing out whatever pipe you have in there and creating more of a mess further downstream. But I do definitely advocate for continued education on that topic, and looking to see what we can do to improve our activities in the future. But I mean, it's a statewide issue. Every drainage inspector meeting that we have, and they have meetings twice a year for the Association of Drainage Inspectors. Ashley is a regular attendee to these. Beaver activity is always an issue, and beaver bounties are always an issue. Every entity is dealing with it. They're paying the beaver trappers more and more every year, because it's harder to find people that will do it. And but not doing that activity as a drainage authority is going to challenge your the ability to manage the systems.
Mr. President,
Go ahead.
just to comment, I feel that installing a culvert pipe or such, or whatever devices like this within dams only encourages the beaver to build them higher and wider. And also the public then begins to expect that that dam is allowed to be stayed there. And that is a real danger to the flooding and to the actual capacity of the ditch. And so that's, I'm very fearful that we would lose.
Pretty certain there's nobody on our board who's in favor of beavers.
No, no, I'm not in favor of beavers, but I mean, on the other hand, I realize that sometimes well-meaning devices may not be able to provide the capacity of that ditch that we need whenever you get a 9-inch rain and somebody's backyard fills up with water and they have a swimming pool when they open the door to their basement, things like that.
Would you agree, however, that we ought to place the trap someplace where it's not so damn
That
visible?
makes.
I don't disagree. I don't disagree that there has to be more conscientiousness to it, but I also, what I'm getting to eventually is saying that I think that, maybe when we talk about the size of equipment, I mean, if there's excavators that are small enough that can go out there and do more removing the dam period, and working on that issue. And I'm pretty sure that's part of that less than 5-year business that has to be done. So, but that's what I just comment about the capacity of the drainage system should not be impaired.
Sure.
Starts on,
Sure.
I get exactly what everybody's talking about here, and I'm not a big fan of the beavers.
Nobody hates them more than
Yeah, exactly, but we had an issue. I think we should at least look at some of that, as much as I hate to say it, because I don't think they work and it's a bad idea. However, last year, I know they were trapping beaver on our ditch, and I saw they caught 2 otter instead of 2 beaver. And that made me sick to my stomach, and so there are downsides to the traps too. It's just, there's no easy answer to it. I don't know what the answer is, but that made me sick.
Madam, Mr. President, I'm not against looking at alternative methodology and such, but I want to be very protective of that capacity of the drainage system as we, that's the primary mission.
Yeah, just a quick clarification. The traps on dams, that was not the district. We work very closely with the trappers. We're very selective to make sure that we are as safe as possible, which includes making sure that they're not visible for public use. We have seen an uptick in private trapping, as well as landowners, which in this area it is city property, are welcome to trap as well. So I can't speak to whose it was, but it was not our trap.
That is excellent to know.
Correct. It was, yep. And I did catch Manager Robertson on her way and just let her know that that was not us. We have worked with the city. We always work with any of the landowners directly where we're trapping and adjacent as far as we can. Obviously, with trails that are public access, that's where we try and utilize those signs to get as much notice out as we can, with being cautious on what kind of attention that is drawing, because we don't want folks going in there and messing with the traps or getting hurt. And so we try and minimize that as much as possible and utilize alternative methods. Very open to looking at any alternatives that would be non-lethal. We have tried some in the past. They have not been effective, but always open to new technologies. I did grab the landowner's contact. We'll be reaching out to just see what she does have based on her experience, and obviously looking forward to any improvements.
And if you do reach out to her, make sure you tell her it wasn't us.
Yes, I did catch her. I will clarify it. It's it's.
Thank you for that information too.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I don't, and like I said, I can't speak to how it got there or why it was there. It's potentially, there's a whole bunch of reasons why it could have been, but I do know that is not, at that time of year, we were not actively trapping.
Cool.
So.
Good to know.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Manager Bradley, next on the agenda is staff reports.
Manager Wynant, your usual comment? Wow.
Oh, no reports?
Oh, staff reports.
Staff reports, it's your
Not-
turn to.
It's usually your turn to say how impressed you are and thankful you are. We have such good staff.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I thought you were
Merry,
going.
and Merry Christmas and Happy New Year.
Yeah.
Okay, yes, I will say it again. I love these staff reports.
Nice.
It's, they're very interesting, and it shows us the wide range of issues that did you say you have 16 staffers now?
Yes.
16 individuals are up to. That's a boatload of work. So, thank you. I thought you were going to go through them, and I thought,
Nope.
Oh, please.
Nope.
I know.
Please, no.
I know.
No, we're not
Sorry,
going to do
it's
that.
yeah.
Next, we have the calendar.
So this is
Last
the
page of the packet.
152. Any comments on it?
Happy holidays.
Yeah, again, it doesn't require any action.
Nope.
So are we now up to the administrator update?
Yes, I'll make this quick. Just note Rice Creek Watershed District and its boundary project, little update there. We have proposed the legal watershed boundary revision to our partners. Having reviewed the feedback and prepared these updated materials, they're asking that they take a look at those. If no other comments come back, we'll develop the final product and ask them, or we will draft the petition to move that forward and look for their concurrence on it. ACD 102232. Working with the DNR there. The DNR has requested their state engineer that works for DNR to get involved in the process so they can talk engineer to engineer with Chris and company, so that they have a good understanding of the outcomes that the model's generating. Columbus has reached out January 9th. Sounds like they're going to have a workshop meeting. I haven't seen.
I thought it was January 8th.
9th.
Is it the 9th?
9th? Yeah, I haven't seen the agenda yet, but it was not surprising, you know.
Yeah.
So we'll wait for confirmation of that meeting and the agenda. And Chris and I will be present to offer any clarity that we might. The coordination with the city engineer has been ongoing, and I'm sure they'll have their own position to share there. DNR did request as a portion of that site visit on the 137th Street culvert. Is that a street or an avenue? I guess I'm not even sure.
I think it's,
Street.
That's a
I
street.
think,
Yeah,
yeah,
street.
probably a street. But important to note that where the crossing is actually a privately owned driveway.
Right.
That is an extension of the road.
And for that reason, we had contacted the landowner and asked them to join us, met on site. That's Mr. Dave Ryback. He had some concerns and engaged in the conversation. Basically, I don't want to receive water without having an outlet on the system. We communicated, we worked downstream to upstream, et cetera. And I know Ashley had spoken to him about being a contractor for the district. Anyways, we'll return to the board with the outcome of the DNR engagement report, consideration of the evaluation alternative 4. It's time to pay our League of Minnesota Cities invoice for property casualty premium. It's up just a tad from last year. We're at $27,484. This is a routine payment and it'll be taken care of. That is all I have.
Okay.
Roger Waller. Thank you, Mr. President. I attended the Washington County Consortium meeting earlier this month. Rice Creek made a presentation here. It was basically about climate change. There were 4 different presentations. One of them that caught my attention was the one by Hennepin County. They have a number of stormwater ponds that are of age of half a century or so. So they only went out and measured them. Now, these are only stormwater ponds on county properties. This is not all the stormwater ponds in Hennepin County by any means. And they said they were surprised that the ponds were not as didn't have as much sediment in it as their expectation was. So that was a good point about it. But what they were doing with this, they wanted to know what the capacity of the pond was, so that when they are making the assumption that there's going to be greater rainfall under the carbonization of the air from air pollution, and as such, they were preparing to see how much they needed to repair or not. They mentioned that they're $100,000 a piece in order to fix the ones up that they felt had to be fixed. I'll just leave that with a piece of information with you. I myself,
$100,000 a piece?
A piece, yeah, $100,000 a piece is what he put out. And he didn't put a particular size on it. So, I mean, I don't know if that's a big one or small one or what. It made me think that I'm just curious as to how much capacity has been lost by the Wetland Conservation Act of flooding these wetlands and maintaining them without not maintaining the drainage system and the 25-year rule. But that's another discussion for a longer time with other people. Second, I did attend a legislative committee on water at the Capitol. They're still talking about the water nitrate problem in southeast Minnesota. That's going to go on for quite a while. They announced at the meeting that there will be another meeting in January in which they proposed legislation that they're going to submit to the governor, or some of the bills will be there, and the opportunity then will have a more clear idea. The Met Council was also there and made a presentation about the need for the Met Council to increase the capacities of the sewer systems. They're talking about building one out in our area in the Northeast Metro. Moving the one at Hastings is already underway, and then there's one in western Hennepin County, and the loss of groundwater. This is what they were worried about. Most of these systems are functioned by pumping groundwater in, and they want to recover that groundwater for one of our favorite phrases that we created here at Rice Creek, reuse. So a lot of talk about that issue. As far as the White Bear Lake business, they just handed out the schedule as to what the next couple of years will be without any substance to it other than this is going to be this and this and this and this. And so we'll have to just keep watching what goes on. But I did find that interesting to talk about the reuse of water that'd be from the sanitary sewer instead of just dumping it into the river, and in this way replacing the use of groundwater for irrigation of ball fields, like things that we here at Rice Creek have pioneered. And I'm glad to hear that some others are putting it have bigger budgets and bigger areas of authority.
Was the Department of Health there?
Yes, they were, and they were there for basically to talk about the nitrates, though, But this is, they were listening, so I think that's a interesting idea. Again, the idea here was to conserve groundwater in the aquifers and to also, in addition to catching the stormwater, which we use up here. So since they're talking about putting um, they didn't want to talk much about it. In fact, it's one of the legislators had to draw it out of them that they were thinking about building a sewer plant out in our area. I say our northeast metro area. So, which they didn't talk anymore about. They weren't, but went on to talk about the use of this, what's called gray water, for lack of a better explanation, and to water gardens or lawns or such, things like that. Other than that, Mr. President, we'll see you next year, I reckon, and I hope you all have a happy holidays and safe. To the whole staff, including that that's watching us in the, what do you call it, virtual world?
Thank you. Same to you.
Yesterday, I was online with Redpath and Associates and Nick and Teresa as we're preparing for the audits.
All right.
That's all I have.
So, first of all, I want, Teresa, I did have the stuff you handed me today. I just had it with the stuff from the meeting. So my apologies, everything, no matter what you do to try to help me, sometimes I fall down. So we had an excellent meeting with Senator Mary Kanish today, and she has agreed to be a Senate author for us. We had to do some very fast and fancy footwork when the city of New Brighton said, you know, we really don't want you to dink around with Hanson Park unless you absolutely have to. We'd much rather see you fix Jones Lake first, and which would allow us to change some certain culverts and everything else, which would increase the amount of flow through here, and maybe we wouldn't have to do Hanson Park regardless. So it happened too quick for us to try to do anything about that other than to shift our direction to make our first priority Jones Lake. So when you see the fact that we're using it as our first priority, let me finish it. Jones Lake, that's the reason. And the senator, good senator who lives, and she gave us an elbow and stuff, so this is here and this is here and this is where I live, was tickled that we were not going to fool around with Hanson Park right now. So save that, that's a long way down the road before we have to cross any bridges there. Looks like Jones Lake would be a good standalone project for us to do. We have certain problems with the Corps and the DNR to be able to do, it's public water that we want to dredge. So we've got that issue. But she's going to be our Senate author. She told us to contact out Senator Pappas, who is bonding. And we have reached out to Representative Sandra Feist, who also represents that area. And she said she's also fascinated and interested, but didn't want to talk to us until January. So we will be reaching out to her in January. So that was that piece of work. I think that's enough.
I have nothing.
Okay. Now, Mr. President, I just mentioned that many years ago, somewhere around 2000, the engineers will have to check this. This is prior to anybody here who's on the board, I think. Even Teresa, maybe. This is, they did some work at Jones Lake. I don't remember what it was, but I just suggest you check. That's all.
Very good. So a motion to adjourn?
So moved to adjourn, Mr.
Second.
President.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Passes 4-0.
All right.
Merry Christmas, Happy
Yes,
New Year.
Merry Christmas,
And
everybody.
every other religious, whatever,
Just so it doesn't
appropriate
start
for you.
before I get home.